going on, everybody, and welcome back to TCG Madness. In today's video, we'll be going over the final starter deck from Altered TCG. This is the Yzmir starter deck, and much like all the other videos that I've done, we'll be going over taking a look at the entire deck. Then I'll be taking some cards out, adding some cards in that'll give it some much better firepower and synergy with the hero that we're given, just like all the other videos that I've done. Now, before we go any further, if you guys can do me the really big favor, please hit that like button. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. Don't forget to also comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything that I have to say or do with this deck. Really love hearing from all you guys. Also, do comment down below if you guys have been enjoying the Altered TCG experience, the gameplay, if you've been enjoying these type of videos, all that stuff. If you do all three of those things, like, comment, and subscribe, you will enter in a chance to win not one, but two starter decks from me to you guys absolutely free. I have a Muna and a Bravo deck. One lucky winner will win both of these starter decks. You must be in the US to qualify. Again, like, comment, and subscribe on this video. If you're already a subscriber to the channel, great. Hit that like button, comment down below, and you will enter in a chance to win both of these starter decks. The winner will be announced September 30th. That is Monday, September 30th. I will be announcing who the winner is. So good luck to everybody. I really have appreciated everybody that has been doing the liking, the comment. I'm seeing a lot of great comments, seeing that you guys have been enjoying a lot of this stuff. So with that being said, let's go ahead and not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and crack into things. Let's go ahead and take a look at this starter deck. So just like all the other starter decks, it seems like there is pretty much a staple of how, they built these decks. I don't think these decks are overpowered as I've been taking a look at all of the starter decks so far. Again, there's nothing that really stands out to me. They definitely need some upgrading and some retooling, which is a good thing, right? Because you don't want a starter deck to be extremely, OP. Not one deck to me has really stood out, so I really do commend Altered TCG, the folks over there, for really putting in like the effort and really just not making one deck stand out from the rest of them is pretty much what I'm trying to say. The hero for the Yzmir is Akesha and Taru. If you don't know, Yzmir uses a lot of removal, uses a lot of bounce spells, pretty much just wants to, pump the brakes on your opponent a little bit. So I'm really curious to see what the final product for this one looks like. Her ability is tap after you. You can only activate this if you are the first player. So it basically says after you, end your turn as if you had played a card. You may still play cards later this day. Pretty powerful ability. Again, very unique. Everything else pretty much has, like, Muna grows things, right? Ordris and Axiom uses a lot of tokens and builds on those tokens. Bravos hit you hard, hit you fast, as powerful as it can, and then pretty much win as fast as it can. What was the other one too? We had the pink deck that I can't remember what the Navenka and Blotch pretty much uses dice rolling. Yzmir uses some very unique ability to use a lot of bounce spells. So this is probably out of all the decks, this one might be one of the hardest to pilot. Just to keep that in mind. We also have, of course, spells. So this deck utilizes a lot of spells. We have Off You Go for a 2/4, send to the reserve target character hand cost of 3 or less. So we do get a play set of those. Again, that's pretty good synergy with your hero as well. We also have the Yzmir Stargazer for a 2/1 for a 1/2/1. So pretty good there. We also have a Studious Disciple for a 1/1 for a 0/1/1. Also has a quick action. The next spell you play this turn costs 1 less. Not bad there. We have Kraken's Wrath, 5/5. Send to reserve up to 3 target characters with a total hand cost of 5 or less. So again, removal, bounce spells, utilizes those spells to really pump the brakes on your opponent. We also have Spycraft for a 2/2 sabotage, then resupply. So again, you bounce something, send it to the reserve, play this card, get rid of that card in the reserve on your opponent's side, then resupply. Pretty good card there. This is one of my favorite cards in this deck. I think it's a very underutilized spell. We also have Banishing Gate. So again, more spells. For a 4/4 fleeting, discard target character or permanent. I like that a lot. If you guys remember, the Axiom uses a lot of permanents. This will be a great way to really hammer on your opponent by using that card. I like that card a lot. We also have another character, Lady of the Lake, for a 2/2 for a 1/1/3 in the water. Of course, nice card there. We also have a Alchemist for a 3/1 for a 1/1/1. And if you play out of your hand, I gain 2 boost. I like this card a lot. Oh, there we go. I was hoping that we had the rare version as well, because the added bonus is it gains 3 boost if it's played out of your hand. Like that card a lot. Pretty good there. You also have Alice for a 2/2/4 for a 3/3. Quick action. After you discard me to the reserve, do this. So pretty good there. We also have the rare version of Alice for a 3/3 for a 3/3/4. Pretty powerful there. I would have liked to see a little bit of a decrease, maybe out of the hand or out of the reserve. I would have liked to see that. Dorothy Gale for a 5/3 for a 3/2/2. This is one of my favorite cards to play with. In the early stages of Altered TCG, this card was one of the most annoying cards because if you play it out of your hand, you may send target character to the reserve. By playing Dorothy Gale, and if you had like 2 in your hand, man, you could just bounce stuff over and over again. She also has the additional bonus of if you play out of the reserve, she has that cheap reduction cost. And for a 3/2/2, she's actually pretty powerful. Do we get the rare version? We do. So this is really good. So if you play out of the hand or out of the reserve, you get to send a target character to the reserve as well. So you get that ability twice. Here's the other card that you just did not want to see. If you went past, if your opponent had 7 or more mana and you saw this card, you were in trouble, man. This is Sakurabru, hopefully I said that right, for a 7/4, 4/4/4. Your opponent's expedition facing mines moves backwards one region. Not a lot of cards do that in this game, move forward or backwards. There's a couple of cards that do that, but this one I think is one of the better cards, especially in this Yzmir deck. It's a really, really powerful card. Do we get the rare version? We do, and you can see the added bonus for additional stats. Plus, as a quick action to just discard it and draw a card, so really good there. Baba Yaga, I like this card a lot too, because it's a 3/2 for a 2/1/2, but play it out of your hand, you get to draw a card. I like that. I always like drawing cards. We also have the rare version of Baba Yaga for a 3/2 for a 3/2/2, drawing a card as well. We also have the Tooth Fairy for a 2/1 for 1 across the board, has Sabotage, just discard up to 1 target card from the reserve. Like that a lot. We also have the Monolith Archivist for a 2/2 for a 3/3/3. Defender, my expedition can't advance during dusk. Probably a card I'm going to immediately get rid of. Don't know why that's in there. We also have Beauty Sleep for a 1/3. Target character gains a sleep. This is like, again, that pseudo anchor. I kind of like that card a lot. Don't know if it really belongs in this deck, but we'll take a look at that. And there's the rest of the cards that you guys know, the tokens, the lands, stuff like that, to play a game of Altered TCG. That is the deck itself. Now, of course, like all the other videos, let's go ahead and show you guys the cards that I would take out personally, and then the cards that I would add to hopefully give it some much better synergy and firepower. All right, now for the cards to take out. Now, there weren't a lot of cards that actually take out. This deck actually has some great synergy with the hero. So we're going to go ahead and do like we always do. We're going to start off with the rares that I would remove. Starting off, we have Tooth Fairy, which again, there is an argument that this card can stay, but I went with something a little bit different. I think a little bit better. So we're going to get rid of the rare copy of the Tooth Fairy. We're also going to get rid of the rare copy of the Sakurabru, only because it has that 7 out of hand with the other 2 cards. I don't like big body 7 or 8 drops clogging up my hand. I like a little bit cheaper, I like the 4s or the 5 drops, especially when you get it in the later game, because playing these cards, you really just, you have to really build up a board state in order to get to that point. And then by then, the game really is either you're winning or you're losing. I mean, cards like this can get you back in the game, but chances are you're really not going to use it, especially with the other 2. I think the other 2 are just as fine. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the rare copy. We're also going to get rid of the rare Monolith Archivist. Again, this card does not belong in here. We're also going to get rid of the rare copy of the Beauty Sleep. Again, a card that does not belong here. We're also going to get rid of the 3 copies of the Lady of the Lake. Pretty vanilla card, and I went with something a little bit better. We're also getting rid of a Banishing Gate, because we don't need all these spells clogging up our hand. And then we're going to get rid of 3 copies of the Kraken's Wrath. Now, this is a good card, but I went with a little bit of something a little bit cheaper and I think better than this card. I'm going to show you the cards that I added. Okay, now we're at Alter GG, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the cards that we're going to add. Now, keep in mind, this hero is a very unique hero. Pretty much what you do is you just tap her, and basically you forfeit your turn, giving the ball back to your opponent, giving priority back to your opponent. Doesn't mean your round is over and your turn's over and you can't play any more cards. You just tap it and just say, hey, my opponent, you get to go again. The reason why this is such a unique deck is because it forces your opponent to play something and you react to your opponent. Basically, you want your opponent to play stuff so then you can pretty much play all your spells, bounce that out, and keep sending your opponent backwards. Then you play characters at the very end when your opponent either has no mana, maybe you have 2 or 3 mana left over, and then you play cards just basically inching your way to victory. That's how this deck kind of wants to run itself, right? And this deck out of all the other decks probably has the best synergy, but I did go with a different, unique route with this deck that are going to basically be able to make sure that every time it's your turn, you're going to be able to bouncing something, resupplying, sabotaging, and getting the most bang for your buck with the cards that you're going to play. Starting off with this card, we have 2 copies of Flammel. This is a 4/3 for a 4/3/3, pretty powerful. It has resupply, then you may return a spell from your reserve to your hand. An argument can be made to actually add 3 copies of this because you're going to play so many spells, you might actually want certain spells back, but it's a very, like, you have to make sure you actually want to have that certain spell. So that's the only reason why I went with 2 copies of him. He is pretty good though with that resupply ability. Again, basically able to put the top card of your deck in your reserve. So again, maybe you do get the spell you want. I like this card because again, it'll allow you to dig through those spells, maybe get spells back, and resupplying allows you to dig through your deck a little bit more, getting a little more bang for your buck with this deck. So 2 copies of Flammel will actually do the trick, I think. Now, the other weird direction I took with this deck is this Out of Faction rare, where this is a Sneasure Shroom for a 2/2, 1 across the board, but it can't speak. It gains Anchor. Anchored ability with this deck is actually pretty good because when you play stuff and you're bouncing things out, your opponent may not have any cards on the table, and having something cheap like Sneasure Shroom that you can play for 2 and actually stick around for at least 1 more turn, and then at that noon you gain that 1 boost having a 2/2/2 across the board. Maybe you pair that up with a Dorothy Gale in your next turn, bouncing something else from your opponent. Maybe you play Off You Go. Those type of things, like, again, it's simple. Again, you want to inch your way to victory. Basically, this deck, pick 1 expedition and move it over. You're not going to basically have both expeditions moving closer to each other like this. You basically just want to inch 1. Maybe you do get that both crossing, but really what you want to do is take 1 of them and just slowly bounce your way over closer to victory. Cards like this will actually allow you to do that because you're going to be bouncing so many of your opponent's stuff that basically having something like as weak as Sneasure Shroom is, just sticking around for just 1 more turn with that anchored ability and gaining that boost at noontime will actually be beneficial when you're setting up for victory here. The other card I'm going to add is 2 copies of Baku. Now this is where, again, you get a little bit of a tricky situation. Maybe you go with 3 copies of Baku and 2 of Flammel and 2 of Sneasure Shroom. Maybe you go with 3 Flammel and 3 Sneasure Shroom and only 2 Baku, something like that. The reason why I go with Baku is because he's a 4/4 for a 2/2/2, but that bottom ability is so good here. Target opponent discards a card from their hand. You are bouncing so much stuff to and from your opponent's board back to their hand that maybe they only have 1 or 2 cards in hand. You're like, all right, I saw that card, he played it, I'm gonna play Off You Go, bounce it back to your hand. Maybe your opponent doesn't have enough mana to replay that card. They play something like maybe they're playing against Muna and you play against a Sneasure Shroom or a Spindle Harvester or something like that. Then you play Baku, bouncing that final card in their hand right off to the discard pile. There you go. Stuff like that will really just infuriate your opponent. If you don't want to go the Flammel route and you just want to go strictly with having 3 copies of the Baku route, again, I can see that maybe you then just beef up some other cheaper cards, like maybe you go with a Tooth Fairy, because a Tooth Fairy with sabotaging and stuff might actually be beneficial than a Flammel, but I did go with the Flammel route instead. Again, there are different ways of manipulating this deck. This deck has some pretty good synergy. Out of all the decks we've seen so far, I think this one actually has the best synergy so far. So I went with 2 copies of Baku. The other thing we're going to go with is another spell. This is why we got rid of the Kraken's Wrath, because I went with 3 copies of Intimidation. Now, why? Kraken's Wrath number 1 is a 5-drop. It's very expensive, and I rather play cheaper, inefficient cards that pretty much do the same thing than Kraken's Wrath. Kraken's Wrath had send to reserve up to 3 target characters with a total hand cost of 5 or less. This one basically states return target character or permanent with a hand cost of 5 or less to its owner's hand. Again, if your opponent plays like a 5-drop or something like that and they're pretty much tapped out and you still have like 4 mana, why not play Intimidation and then like a Sneasure Shroom, bouncing something, keep a Sneasure Shroom, maybe next turn you play Flammel, picking back up Intimidation, and then playing Intimidation, bouncing something again off of your opponent's board. You see what I'm saying? Like, you see some quick combos. Maybe you bounce maybe you play Intimidation, and it goes back to your opponent's hand. They're tapped out with mana, but they have that 1 card in hand. You'd want to get rid of it. Maybe you play Baku, making them discard that final card in your hand. I think these 4 cards right here have some pretty good synergy with the deck. I like Intimidation because of that 2 cost right there. Again, it does have fleeting, so you're going to lose it, but then that's why we have Flammel, because maybe you want to get that card back to your hand. 3 copies of Intimidation, I think, is better than the 3 copies of Kraken's Wrath. Again, a 5-drop playing against 2-drop. I prefer the 2-drop, but again, you guys can comment down below and let me know what you guys think. The last card we're going to add to the deck is we're just going to have another rare copy of the Cardigran Alchemist for a 3/1 with a 3 boost playing it out of your hand. Again, I like this card a lot because for 3 out of your hand, gaining that 3 boost, that's pretty powerful. So you're going to have 4 across the board. Then you have that cheap 1 cost. Again, maybe you play Intimidation, then maybe you play the Alchemist, then maybe you play Baku. At least you got 2 cards on the field, and you also bounce something from your opponents. Maybe you play Off You Go, bouncing something else. There are a lot of great cards with this deck. The synergy is off the charts with this deck. I do like this deck a lot, more than I thought I would. I think so far, Bravos, then Muna, then this deck, in my opinion, are the top 3 decks that I would go with if you are going to be looking into getting into Altered TCG. Again, let me know what you guys think down below. That is going to do it for this video. And as always, don't forget, if you have some unique cards that you absolutely think belongs in this deck, then it probably does belong in this deck. Quick disclaimer, I don't know what your unique situation looks like. I'm pretty sure by now we pretty much all get that and understand that. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button. If you do all three of those things, you guys will enter in a chance in the giveaway. I'm giving away both of these starter decks, the Muna and the Bravo. So one lucky winner is going to win both of these starter decks, which will help you kick off your Altered TCG fandom. Again, you must be in the US to qualify. Have to do all three of those things: like, comment, and subscribe. Already subscribed to the channel? Perfect. Hit that like button, comment down below. I hope you guys have enjoyed all of these starter deck reviews and upgrades. We will now be getting into some gameplay and some gameplay footage of all of these decks, as I'm really enjoying Altered TCG. I've been using Board Game Arena a lot. There'll be links down below in the description box for all of the stuff that I use, all the tools that I use. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.